Ay. Bathi khuluma nabo mfana batshisa kamba kanjani lungani kwalalo aka umfana ka-chocolate kid Leo in the building, let me hear it. Boo, 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 boo. That's what's up. Welcome to the Global Sunday. It's another day, it's another weekend, it's another Sunday. Oh, by the way, I am still struggling. If you remember last week, I was trying to figure out if Sunday is the beginning of the week or Sunday is the end of the week. So so if you're watching right now and you have an idea, of what it's supposed to be or what it is, please let me know. Let me know if it's the beginning of the week or it's the end of the week. Yeah, it's your boy Lungani Kwal, aka Chocolate Kid Leo. Okay, without wasting any time, I'm just gonna, pass it over to my lovely hosts. And as always, I'm just gonna do a drum roll, and I'm gonna say all the way from Germany, people Toffel, all the way from Australia. This time I got it right, Mr. David Pike, all the way from Australia again. The Queen, She's now the Queen of. You know what? Today I'm naming you the Queen of Global Sunday. Claire in the building. Welcome to the Global Sunday. Hello to you guys. How you doing? Please take over the show. It's all yours.
Hello, everybody from Germany. When it comes to being efficient and effective, yes, thank you, Lungani, for handing over. It's gonna be like that. Or like the Spanish say, cuadrado alemán, like squares, Claire, David, so good to see you. Lungani, so good to be back. So, what's been happening this week with you guys? David.
Well, hi. Thank you very much for having me back on. It's great to be back. We're in lockdown again in Melbourne, Australia. So it's winter. This is our 6th lockdown. I think we're kind of getting it right this time. People are doing the same thing again, which is clearing out their cupboards, doing a whole lot of domestic work that is driving everybody crazy, and going for a walk that, it's about 5 kilometers long, and that's it. But, we're all healthy and happy, and yeah, so whatever.
I've been away. Yeah, I was wearing a mask. I was telling the panel before the broadcast, I got out of wearing my mask, but as Claire says, down in her neck of the woods, that's still the go. It's really nice because we have outings and walks, and just to breathe the fresh air without getting it filtered through cotton is great. So very, very thankful for that. We have winter here, but I'm in the jungle as well, so sort of like jungle winter. It's hard to explain jungle winter. You might have to wear a little coat in the morning, and that's about all. And we've got lots of wind, 40 knot wind overnight, but then it's clear as. So that's the weather report. Thank you very much. Artistic wise and music wise, Australia's, I guess, like the rest of the world, is thinking about the aftermath of the Olympics. It's been a very interesting time in Tokyo, and obviously the athletes have all competed from all parts of the world. There's interesting backstories. Some I think there was more controversy this year for some reason with the Olympics. I think the bad sportsmanship, perhaps, I don't know, seemed to be filtering through more. Maybe that social media does that, but on the positive side, wonderful achievements. I love the athletes who were just thrilled to be part of it and who participated to their best, even if they got a bronze or even if they just missed out. So that they'll be coming back, but they got a bit of a shock in Australia. I don't know about other parts of the world, people. They've had to have a 4-week quarantine. So 4 weeks, not just the 2. So that's all I can talk about as we start the show.
There's also the Paralympics, David, which is really important.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
So props to them.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because do we have that? I mean, to some extent, we have that in the performing arts now, and it's getting a bigger thing to work with people from all kinds of situation, background, physical. And I looked at the Paralympics team of Germany, actually, and people dancing in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And, yes, that's something that is very interesting, as you say. So let's also check out the entertainment news and get back to these topics later. From Germany, we don't have 4 weeks lockdown yet. We don't have a shutdown. I prefer to call it shutdown, not lockdown, because I see that there's many countries that are much stricter than in Germany, and you are still allowed to go outside when there's an emergency, and when you need to go to work. And there's a big lobby of the industry that makes a lot of things possible when you are working in this field. However, freelancers, people who have a child and who do not have a partner, older people, they don't have such a strong lobby. So unfortunately, they don't get as many privileges or interests as the big industry. But let's go and check out Wolf Entertainment News. What's going on there?
Boy the Wolf howling at you on the Global Sunday Show, bringing you the Global Sunday Entertainment News. And today I'm going to be covering the Arizona Cardinals hosting the Dallas Cowboys. This previous Friday night is their first preseason game, and my emphasis on preseason. So your usual stars such as Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, J.J. Watt, and Chandler Jones did not play in this game. But that did not stop our 2 first-round draft picks this season in Zaven Collins and Rondell Moore. Rondell Moore, our second-round pick, he came out swinging. He had 5 catches and ran for 39 yards total. And then we had Zaven Collins, who had 2 very big tackles in the first half. So now that I've covered those 2, I'm going to go directly into the game and tell you that it was pretty much close throughout the entire game, but the Cardinals did have the majority of the game. The Cowboys came out in the second half ready to put on somewhat of a decent fight, but it took a game-winning field goal against our new star kicker in Matt Praters. He kicked a 47-yarder to win the game. The final score was 19-16. So congratulations to your Arizona Cardinals. Woo! Yeah, all right. So now that's all that we have for the game. If you did not get to watch it, here are some highlights from the game. And again, it's your boy, the Wolf, howling at you, saying goodbye. And
Welcome back to the Global Sunday. I don't know who you barrack for on those football teams, but I hope it's your team that's winning. And today we want to invite you to meet our beautiful guest who has such a big heart, a great social conscience. He's a young man who's really going places. His name is Jesse Villegas Jr. Welcome, Jesse. You there? Hi.
Good to be here.
So good to see you. It's fantastic. So Jesse, tell us a bit about yourself so that the viewers can get to know you a bit better. And like, what's an average day or week look like to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you said, my name is Jesse. Just some quick family dynamics. I'm the oldest of three siblings. I have a younger brother. My youngest sibling is his name is Javon, and my middle sister is Jasmine. Um, we're all very tight knit. I'm originally from Phoenix, Arizona, which is geographically speaking about an hour and a half south from Prescott, Arizona, which is where I reside right now. So originally from Phoenix, currently living in Prescott, Arizona. Fun fact, little quick history lesson. Prescott was actually the original capital of Arizona. And I think in 1889, Phoenix became the permanent capital. And Arizona has just been a fast growing place, given how young the state is. I want to say Phoenix is now number 5 for population in the U.S. So only to be ahead of, I think, New York, Chicago, Houston, and L.A. So Phoenix, yeah, a lot of people are starting to recognize who we are and what we're about because of just our growing market. And yeah, I'm glad to be here and to give you guys a little bit of insight on what a average day for me would look like. To be honest, I wish I could give you something a bit more routine. However, the reality of my life and where I'm at in this season, it is very difficult to build a routine. But one thing I would say in my day to day is I try to do something that will feed my mind, my body, and my soul. So, my mind, whether that's reading, whether that's finding a mentor or, my mom or my dear friends to have just some edifying conversations on a daily is very helpful for me to just feel like I'm progressing in my life. And sometimes it feels like it's day to day. Something that feeds my body is I love to run, I love to hike, and fortunately enough, I live in Prescott where we have tons of access to mountains and trails and lakes. So, I get that through the physical pursuit of just pursuing to be a well human being. And lastly, my soul. Right now I live a very fast-paced life. So finding moments of solitude, trying to be quiet, meditation, that looks and feels and comes in very different forms, day to day. But like I said, I just wish there was more of a routine. But I just want to be honest and authentic. And right now, we'll dive into later, as a business owner, there's a lot of unknown variables. So um, I just have to be flexible and adapt to my surroundings and context. So yeah, that's just a little bit of where I'm from, where I'm at, and what I'm doing.
Right.
Oh, that's beautiful to hear and also to welcome you here, Jesse.
Thank you.
So interesting to get to know you now in live because we're not live with each other. We're not in the same space, and that's such a pity. But I remember that I went to the cafe that I think you just mentioned as a business owner that you bought a cafe. And in 2019, is that close to the Bulleri building around the corner? To the Bulleri building, when you go out of the cafe, you turn a left and then a right again. There's this kind of green building with golden
Correct.
profiles.
Yes, yes, yes. You
Okay,
remember
so
correctly. Yeah.
we were there, David,
Okay.
when we were in Prescott. Do you remember that
Yeah, I was
we?
wearing my 10-gallon hat. I was there. Yeah.
Yes,
How wonderful. Well,
yeah, that's very charming to know that there's such a connection. But in terms of the daily routine, I think David, you will probably also know about it. And Claire, like when being in the arts is somehow a similar undertaking. You know, you need to respond to what is necessary at that moment. David.
Yeah, just welcome, Jesse. I was very pleasantly surprised with Prescott. I don't know how you feel. It sounds like you're positive that's where you've relocated from Phoenix. I don't know Phoenix, but yeah, we did walk around Prescott. It's a little town that's got a lot of interesting history, and it's also got quintessential American. I think for an Australian or somebody from overseas, the shops you can get Western paraphernalia, etc. But the the point just from people about establishing new routines and doesn't matter whatever endeavor that you do in the life, you have to change routine to adapt. But I too am a creature of habit. If I go to a new job or a project, I have to make some sort of a habitual routine just to get through everything. I usually find the mornings good to get out of the road, the hard stuff, and then later on in the day it goes a little bit more relaxed. But I don't know how you feel. Do you if you run a business, I guess you get up early these days, is that right? Yeah.
So our cafe opens pretty early, 7 a.m. However, just depending on what day it is, having things prepped, we're getting there 6 a.m. Just to get things ready. But personally, yeah, if I wanted to build a routine before that, that means I'm getting started with an activity at 5, which means I'm getting up at 4:30. And sometimes the days are much longer than anticipated. So, it's interesting because, we hear, for those who are in business or who those are looking at kind of a entrepreneurial world we live in, regardless of generations, I feel like there's a lot of people talking about business and opening small businesses. There's this culture of, just it's very gritty and it's a lot of work, and which is very true. And I myself in my generation, I think we've taken that and we've just found a lot of identity in it. But currently, I would say, like, I believe in that grit. I believe in the hustle mentality. I believe in, working. However, I'm in a place where it's like, even though I have this very demanding job and career and business, I'm also finding that life is not always that, and finding boundaries and setting boundaries and finding rest, and looking for, new ways to change our mindset and mind frame so that we can experience wealth, whatever you define that is, but also just the sweet moments that we get that present themselves in life. So yeah, it's a very interesting walk right now. I'm year one into a business that I've never have had experience before in, and I purchased this business March 1st, 2020, 9 days before the world shut down. So this feels like year one for me. Like 2020 was such a shot. So yeah, there's a lot of unknown still, even where we are currently in the world. And the learning curve is like steeper than ever. But it's a day to day, and but just hearing, like, I want to be a creature of habit. I've been a creature of habit in the past, and I know the efficiency that my life could have if that was a reality. But I also believe in seasons, right? Figuratively and metaphorically. Like, this is a season where I'm having a lot of trust and faith that I'm in the right place, and I'm absorbing a lot of knowledge that's going to have some special factor in the years to come. So that's how I'm, like, approaching this season in my time as I start, to be a business owner.
And what a great opportunity it is to start a business surround, which is around a culture of connection. People like to get together and have a coffee and have a chat. And that what a great business to start, even though it might be a rocky start to your business.
Sure.
In this amazing time that we're living in. But I hope you're making a decent coffee there, Jesse.
Absolutely.
Melbourne is renowned for making sure that we have decent coffee, and I'm hoping that it's translating across the other side of the world.
Yes, absolutely. We value. I mean, just to be frank, we yes, we value great coffee. We feel like it's the starting point. It brings people together.
Yeah.
There, there's a there's a community that's looking for um, excellent coffee, and then what surrounds that. And I feel for us, it's like we have to have that starting point down, right? So whether it's coffee, tea, um, or any of our products, like that's our first pillar is coffee, and
Mm.
then comes conversation, and then comes community. So
Yeah.
that's what the porch is kind of based on: coffee, conversation, community. And when I share this with people, I like to just expand a bit. So coffee is everything we bring people into our doors with. Conversation is relationship building, and in community is transformation. And I feel like as a business owner and as someone who's like engineering a little bit of like culture in a space, I want people to have great quality coffee and product, but I also want them to feel a sense of hospitality and creativity where they are empowered and they can move that conversation and relationship building into some type of transformation. And then one of the most beautiful things is to watch that unfold in front of my eyes in our shop. And it's wonderful. It's a currency that's better than money sometimes, because you get to watch lives transform in front of you. And it's really hard to say that, and mean that sometimes. And so I'm just super thankful that I get to watch that happen day to day. Mhm.
It's an interesting explanation, Jesse. I remember when I first went to New York area, and I had to meet with Ken Ludden, who's not here on our panel this week, but we did our business, our art business. We didn't do it in an office. We did it in a coffee shop. We spent hours in a coffee shop because of there's a bit of murmur behind you. There's plenty of coffee, of course, but just it's very conducive and relaxing to be sitting there talking about the music and the art that we do. But that's where we did it. We didn't do it on a park bench or a picnic bench. We did it in a coffee shop. And same thing in London. With Ken, we're sitting down in coffee shops again. So you never know what's being manifested under your ceiling
Yes,
when you're serving that coffee to the people and creating that beautiful ambience and atmosphere.
right. I agree. I think that reality happens day to day. I think it's really beautiful when it comes to light and we get to witness it. But you're right. I think we'll never know the ripples of what goes on in those conversations. So whether it's in the arts, like your world, or whether it's in business and client to client meetings, or whether it's um, families using our space to host a baby shower, like those moments, we get to see a snapshot in the coffee shop. But where they go beyond that is it's a beautiful thing, and it's not our journey, but we get to be a part of it. So that's sweet.
So, since we covered two of the essential questions in one already, I think what we're going to do is we're going to move on to David. And it says here we're going to jump into transition 5. What do you think? Now that we're taking over with Jesse and a good coffee, we can kind of make a nice stew here.
little segue.
I could do with a good coffee now.
I'm looking forward. So Jesse, yeah, there are some prepared questions that we have, and we'll get on. I'll throw one at you now, but I'm meeting you for today, and as we get to the end of all our busy weeks, we get to meet people at very short notice, and it is a pleasure. I know you have reinvented yourself, and I don't mean that because you were unhappy with your previous self, but you're in like almost a completely different, although sympathetic kind of line of work now. So here's the question, I'll throw it at you and then throw it open to the panel to discuss. So reading about you in the newspaper articles and seeing the 213 Mr. GCU, which I think is Grand Canyon University testimonial, it seems that there are two Jessies, one from before and after knowing what your purpose in life was. How long did it take you to change from the lifestyle that you had before to the one you have today? And how did that transition go along? So you might want to tell us what that previous life was about. It's quite interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. A fair place to start is, 2013 is, we're already pushing a decade, right? So we're getting there. So just reflecting back on some of these articles that was published here in Arizona, and through the institution GCU. And you're right, it's Grand Canyon University. Um, that was such a pivotal era of my life, and just to really give you a little bit of insight, panel, to life before that, because that article really came and was able to display to primarily the student body of students that I was a part of, but also to the Phoenix community, and then also to, the areas that I got to serve and be a part of through a lot of just humanitarian work through that season. But before that, which the article doesn't really touch on, but you know, I love to be just open and transparent about, is I've I grew up just a fair way to say is I grew up quick. My mother migrated here from Guatemala at the age of 16 years old, to pursue a better life, and to just escape some rough situations in Guatemala City. And she came, she had me and my siblings, and she just went through a lot of just adversity, which you could imagine as a young woman entering a new country, learning a new language, alone. So she just went through a lot of adversity through relationships, through hurt, abandonment, but has always found herself progressing forward. And I share that because as early as I could remember, I was able to watch a lot of these situations and relationships and father figures, or even my biological dad, and who I call my stepdad, and just the quirks and of that. I have a huge blended family. So growing up, there wasn't really consistency, is what I'm trying to say. And I was being pulled just in so many directions, because we were trying to make it. And with that reality, what was really accessible to me, and just kind of a blanket term, is the streets. So I grew up in a very just under-resourced, poverty-stricken area, and we just had to like really survive, and we had to like find opportunities, um, and sometimes those approaches uh, were negative, were hurtful, were not really life-giving to myself, my family, or even my community. Um, but it's what I knew. It's what the people around me knew. So a lot of that was just being. I found a lot of my identity in that. And as I got older, I would say around my teenage, young adult years, young adult, um, I got introduced to some friends and some mentors that really gave me a new perspective, a new light, and then I started to like ask questions. I started to like explore my faith. I started to explore different friend groups, and really found like, man, there's another way out. Like, this lifestyle that felt very selfish, that felt very ambitious, um, but I knew was leading towards a path of destruction. And I say that because my to be frank, my dad right now, who is my biological dad, um, is somewhere, and I don't know where he's at. He doesn't really care to have a relationship with me, but my stepdad, who I do call my father, um, is in prison, and he got locked up for 25 years, 25 years plus for a nonviolent drug charge. So he's currently out of my life. And in current developing news right now, he's going through some appeals that may be able to get him out in the next couple of years, which would be really sweet, but also just a wave of emotions for me. Our relationship is good. However, there's gaps to fill. I share that because coming up to that 2013 situation at GCU, um, I was I entered a new world because of the community that came into my life and said, "Hey, Jesse, there's more. There's education. There's great community." And I jumped in there, and I was given this platform to dance and share my story. And it's kind of silly, you guys, because this event was supposed to be funny. It was supposed to be charming. But at the time in my life, nothing was funny or charming. It was very real and raw. So I felt like I wanted to express that through dance, um, and I did, and it was well received. And I went on from a 3 year stretch to do this testimony through dance that was originally geared for a student body, and then we morphed it, and we switched it up to fit more of a general crowd. So we performed it at conventions, churches, conferences, even small little sweet 16s. Um, so it was really cool to see how that my life and what it was and how dark I felt it was be able to express it to the world in the form of dance, and how that was used to for whatever it did for the people that saw it. So, so yeah, that's a little bit about the testimony of David, and how it impacted me and how I was inspired to do it. You know, so
Yeah, wow.
mhm,
People.
mhm. Thank you.
That is a beautiful introduction,
Mm.
and I really enjoyed going through the many references that our lovely producer sent to us, and to discover this world. Um, and some of it, as you just mentioned, isn't described in the article. And however, the dancing itself expresses a lot. And being a dancer myself, it's something I find very interesting. When somebody tells a story and then expresses parts through the dancing, and also the way you chose the vocabulary that you used. You spoke about your mother and your father, and then it was interwoven with tracks and dancing, and that's a beautiful thing, actually, to discover someone. And we'd like to dive deeper into the things that you also did after that, and the things you've decided after a little break. So we'll see you at the other end. And now let me check on my little note. Is Emlanyeni by Natim Dembu, but our producer will be able to perform
Yeah,
much
it's
better than.
M journey by night in table. Yeah, well done, people. Good job.
You are watching Global Sundays.
You ever wondered what actors and actresses do when they have to get in shape really fast for a movie? Because I can promise you.
When I think of influence, I think of the opportunity to impact the world around us. We all have that.
Welcome back to the Global Sundays. And we've got we've got some people who are really alive, and I think, David, are you still alive?
Jesse made me coffee.
Jesse made you a coffee.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Jesse, talking about your earlier life, your younger years, obviously your mum is a great role model to you, and I'm just wondering how it transitions for you to be a role model for others, and also what it's like to be a male role model in your community and in the greater community that you're involved in.
And when I hear that, my mind wants to go here for a moment. It's, growing up in a fatherless generation, because my story is not unique by any means. Growing up in the community I grew up, like, we all have daddy issues, is what we call it. It's very lighthearted today, but we just grew up in a community where our fathers just weren't around. So our mothers, culturally, and our grandmothers culturally, are the ones who have raised a lot of the people I know and the people that I grew up with. So the context, in that sense, when we speak of mentorship, when we speak of what it's like when we are afforded the opportunity to step into roles of being a mentor, I almost have to reference, or at least look back at my upbringing and understand, okay, so when I hear that, Claire, I hear two things. It's like, I hear, what is it like to be a mentor? Which, okay, I can answer that. But the second part is, what is it like to be a male mentor? I just have to dig a little deeper, because that example didn't really exist into more of my adult years. And in my adult years, like, how I comprehend and how I, engage in relationships with people are just much different than the yearning that I would have imagined if I had that when I was younger. Um, so, I mean, that's just a little bit of context when I hear the question, but I love it. I think it's a beautiful question, because I think mentors are wonderful. I think being a mentor is wonderful. I think the level of influence that you can have on someone's life, if they consider you a mentor, for those that we look at our mentors and how they've impacted our lives. Um, I've been fortunate enough to say that people have spoken this over my life and said, "Hey, Jesse, like, you are a mentor figure," or other people have said, "Hey, like, you have been such a mentor to my son, or to my family. I just want you to know this." Um, so one, I don't take it lightly. I think it's a huge gift. I think it's a huge opportunity, that should be taken very seriously. Um, because, like I said, the level of influence that you can have as a mentor, I think, is pretty unique. And having gone through my experience in my life, without mentorship and with heavy mentorship, everything in between, um, I've realized that a lot of people miss it, whether they don't have the trained eye and ear to look for it, or there's unfortunate circumstances that does not allow them to enter any type of deep, edifying relationship like a mentor. So, so with that said, it's it's really important for me to take, my role as a leader and as a mentor, very seriously. And the way I try to do that is by being an example, by leading by example. Um, there's a level of authenticity and realness and a genuine approach that I feel is so important, to have when you are when someone's looking up to you, um, because that allows a very level ground for that relationship to take off somewhere. Uh, I think without those components, it wouldn't. So what I mean by that, the way I feel of what it means to be a role model to me, um, and a male role model is I want to be an example. I want to be transparent. I want to enter places of vulnerability, even though it's difficult, um, because I know doing those difficult things, even though there's tension, on the other side of that, there's growth. And so many times in my life, I think I've been so independent, because that was the example for me. My mom, like I mentioned earlier, had to grind, had to make it, had to be this gritty woman who had to make decisions. And I am so thankful for that today. However, I'm able to see, some of the blind spots and some of the gaps that maybe she missed because she didn't have that community around her, and she wasn't able to, get out of the privacy, right? There's healthy privacy, but also there's privacy that can really put you in ISOs. So I heard it once best through my best friend. He was like, "Hey man, like privacy is great until urgency hits," and that hit me one day because I think I lived such this independent private life. When an urgent moment came and I needed community, I needed someone to talk to, I didn't really know how to reach out or how to say I need help because I never exercised that muscle. Um, so what a role model means today as a male is if I have that platform, which I think I've been given in many, fashions, like I want to be vulnerable, I want to lead by example, and I want to serve. And I feel like that has blessed me tremendously, and I want to give that to the communities that I serve today. So that's
Mm,
what it means to me.
mm.
That
And
sounds.
yeah,
Sorry,
no,
Yeah,
go
Claire. Come on.
on.
Claire.
um, Thank you. That was beautiful. And I was just going to say, there's an absolute resilience that obviously you have been gifted from your mum that is serving you well to be able to go on to mentor others. And sometimes they're the unsung heroes, the ones who are just in the background, just quietly going about their business, making sure that um, their children, their lives are going along um, as well as can be expected. And it's a challenge to negotiate that kind of thing. But it seems that you've picked up that gift that your mother and your grandmother, as you say, have offered, and you're running with it, and it's beautiful. Go on, Mr. Peepo.
You just made me think of, and I'm so glad that we're doing this together here. It's kind of a metaphor as well, the kind of conversation we're having here. And I'm a big shout out to the creator and producer of this show, Longani, for making it possible. Um, you make me think of the invention of painting. According, there's a tale, and that said that there was a girl and her loved boy, or however you want to call it nowadays, um, left, and she drew the line of his shadow on the back of the wall, or maybe that was a cave or whatever. And that was the invention of painting. So in that sense, that was Plinius, I think the younger, from who wrote about it. And that sense, absence um, can be the beginning of a creation, and can be the beginning of something very beautiful, in fact. And you just made me realize that. And also, I wonder, was there, um, there's Tim Larkin mentioned in, and I found out, he's at the Grand Canyon University. So was he also part of your formation, or education, or did you have some connection? Did he have a role in that kind of development?
And, I will never forget my professor for sure. Um, you know, and what Tim Larkin did was, so I was actually I was in his class. It was a social problems class, and we would discuss these social issues that were going on locally, nationally and globally. So it was kind of a broad stroke of conversations and impacting and talking about social structures and history and systems and all of those things. So it was a great class, and he did a great job of just teaching and guiding and really nurturing my curiosity of the questions I had at that time. But one thing that really was very helpful was he took us on trips, um, to help us understand the things that we're reading about. And one of them, fortunately, was literally across the street. We could walk to it, and we didn't have to take a vehicle. Um, and this this trip he took us on to was to a community of refugees, and it was an apartment complex, and it's called Serrano Village. And in there, it was such a uh, almost like a shock, because coming from my school, my university, which is very comfortable and beautiful and safe and gated and all of these wonderful things, walking outside of those gates into this community, um, where no one spoke the same language. Uh, there was just almost this shock, if you weren't ready for it, of like getting hit with so much diversity and culture and smells and experiences. Um, that exposed me to something that I never really been exposed to before. So Tim Larkin, I credit him opening that door to expose me to a world um, that I really needed to see. Um, Not only because of the little bit of the story that I let you guys in on, my upbringing. Um, I think it's like getting out of that was my time at GCU and being able to express through art and dance, but also education. And in the educational class, took me to this community, and now this community is like, oh, there's there's more than just my story. There's a world um, that is hungry for more. Um, and I've experienced stuff like that, through visiting different parts of the world. But you get those in like segments. And to have a refugee community all together, in kind of like this melting pot, is a really unique experience. So yeah, walking to that community and seeing balconies of beautiful, vibrant colors from different countries and smells from different countries was something that I just it moved me in a way that my heart wanted to respond. I just didn't know how it needed to respond in the moment. But it definitely wasn't from staying comfortable in on campus where I was. So people, I credit Tim Larkin the exposure, and that's how he played a huge role by opening the door that I probably wouldn't have opened myself. Like I needed that guidance. I needed that that heart of an instructor and a professor and a mentor. To show me like, hey, look what's out here. So does that make sense? Yeah.
David, you made me think of something David said, because he has been teaching English on Nauru, and he said if somebody, and I'm not comparing Nauru to your situation, but what it makes me think of that, David, I think you said if somebody would only tell those kids how much they would profit from doing the next step in their English, to get to that next level, how that could have a massive impact on their future. That just reminded me of having someone who, I don't know, it's like a switch or just like a I think Larkin called it in one article, he said it's a learning hub. He called it a learning hub, this Serrano possibility. David, going to pass it on to you.
What a huge topic, Jesse, to touch on. I was just listening to you very carefully. I was resonating when you say you crossed the street from first world into refugee world. I call it refugee world because it's not even third world. It's a different universe. We used to it's New Guinea is a northern tropical island that Australia had detention camps on, or they call them processing camps, and we used to arrive in one day. So we'd take a flight from a capital city, and then we'd fly up to the capital in Port Moresby, and then we'd fly on to the high end of the island called Manus Island. And so you would arrive and you would be in a sort of a quasi expat first world encampment, and then you would have to walk the next morning. You wouldn't go that evening usually, but you'd walk the next morning down to the camp. And there's a locale transition that goes through, and then you have to go through security, and you have to be scanned in case you're bringing in contraband, etc. And then you're in this new universe called refugee, and then you spend your whole day there, and then 12 hours later you finish. Maybe you had 4 classes, etc., some office work, and then you'd return back to the camp. And I was just thinking about the huge psychological impact that was having on me. In fact, I'm realizing more now that I'm out of doing that. I did that for 4 years, 2 different locales. And even flying back, you knew that you were heading back to Australia, and it was different. And then you get a huge culture shock on the way back, which was very bizarre because you'd be in a large shopping mall, and it's all clean, and it's all all the gadgets are out, and people are dressed up somewhat and enjoying their first world existence. And you do this every 3 weeks, and it would just really impact upon you. And you're talking about the importance of mentorship, and I thought we had our people around us, our traveling. We were on a team of people that used to come in on a particular time, but it would have been nice in reflection that if I had a mentor through that process to explain this. And so we're not even talking now about the plight of the refugees and where they're coming from, and that they've traveled over the world and nearly been drowned, and they've been persecuted. And we're only talking about our own personal glimpse. I use the word glimpse of their lifestyle. So I'm still processing the huge contrast just by walking 80 meters from the camp into the secure areas, and then spending a day at a time with them for 3 weeks, and then coming back to First World. So what you say that it's had a huge impact on you crossing the street and being introduced to that, and how it's changed your life profoundly, I actually, I totally resonate with.
You know, David, and maybe you would understand. You know, you can't unsee those things. You can't, you know, block them off. I feel like our hearts for each other, you know, for humanity. Um, you know, it was a very moving experience, and I think that's what propelled me um, to pursue whatever I did next. You know, and just to like bring back your question earlier, um, you know, like I am in a very different position. My day to day does not look like I am serving the marginalized or the under resourced every day, because the reality is I'm not. I'm in a very comfortable, small, safe town, um, selling great coffee, and however, like the underlying uh, heart and heart posture is because of those experiences that I've had, not only with the refugees, but like let's peel back more, and now we're looking at, you know, the struggles of growing up and watching my father go to jail, watching my mother like struggle to make it. So here I am, like I by no means have made it. I am here because I understand to provide resources to help communities. Like the reality is like in this country you gotta have assets, you gotta have connections, you gotta have resources. And I felt because of those experiences and the education and knowledge and experiences that I've gone through, if I can get to a place where I can gain those things, then I can have some real impact from a very practical sense, um, by whether it's like moving back home, which is eventually the the goal. Is I want to take this experiences here in Prescott, and I want to absorb it, I want to learn. Um, I joke about it, but one of my mentors said, he was like, "Hey, Jesse, this is your version of grad school. You know, like you go away for a few years, you learn, you absorb, you serve, and you gain what you need to gain from that space, but you take it back home and then you apply it." So I think that's what's going on. Is that business has never been the end goal for me. It's fun, it's great. I think I'm applying my gifts and resources to it. However, like on a day to day, I can see people that look like me that grew up without. I can see those refugees. I can see the hard moments, and that's why I want this business to be successful, not because of dollar signs, but because of opportunity. And I think that's what's so amazing, is if you can, like you said, if you can tell someone about the opportunity ahead, man, how can that change the trajectory of like how they view the world and how they view themselves? And I think that's special. I think that's it's a reminder. It's a daily reminder. So yeah, I would never forget that. I would never forget, um, you know, my stark reality just being punched by walking across the street and really realizing how comfortable and how safe I was. Um, and it's not for everybody. And this is not to knock, you know, people's agenda and what they do. But for me, I felt like there's a hurting world out there, and you know, it's and I want to bring. I would love to bring hope. I would love to, um, you know, bring dignity. I would love to serve, you know, those who are not seen. Um, Life comes alive for me when I'm in those spaces. Um, so this is all part of, you know, I think a plan or a process that it just needs to unfold. Um, so this is really good conversation, because as I'm talking about it, I'm remembering, why do I own a business right now? Why am I pursuing excellence in this? Is because of these experiences that we're talking about right now. So it's very life giving. So I appreciate the questions and how it brings me back to the why behind it. Yeah.
Is there a
Thank you.
documentary we can see, Lungani? I think there's something we can see about you and Jesse now.
Yes.
So why don't we go and have some of your world being streamed?
You are watching Global Sundays.
When I think of influence, I think of the opportunity to impact the world around us. We all have that. If your life in any way connects with other people, you are a person of influence. Everything we do at home, at church, in our jobs, the classroom, or the ball field has an impact on the lives of other people. My question for myself is, what influence do I offer? My hope is that I offer what I value most: my faith, my family, and fitness. Faith. God has given.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Global Sunday. We're with Jesse Villegas, who is extraordinary. The more I'm listening to your life story, the more I'm inspired by you. It's amazing. So we're previously talking about the fact that you were given the opportunity to walk across the road into another world, and rather than sort of shrugging it off and saying, no, this is not for me, you actually embraced it. And in fact, from the comfort of your first world life that you were living, you were a student, you were offered a scholarship, you actually decided to give up that scholarship. So tell us how it felt, Jesse, to actually write that letter or email or however you did it to turn down that scholarship and walk away from a safe life, a life that would have taken you in a totally different direction to embark on the journey that is now unfolding. What did it feel like to say, okay, I'm going to make this decision. I'm going to go, no, thank you very much. I don't want that money. I don't want that opportunity. I want to go somewhere else, somewhere that is a little bit more risky. How did it feel?
It felt, just thinking back on it, it felt, the word that comes to mind is like, it felt automatic. As I was sharing before the break, going and experiencing what I experienced was such a almost like a full body experience, right? It's visual, it's with the smells, it's touching, it's the heart's involved in what I was exposed to. So the reality of like the decision that I needed to make, it was automatic. And I think the very logical and practical realities didn't matter at the time. And what I mean by that is like, all right, Jesse, how are you going to come up with all this money to pay for school? How are you going to, those things I felt like I just bypassed, and it probably, in hindsight, wasn't like the wisest decision, depending how you look at it. But for me, it felt like it was the hard decision that needed to be made at the moment, but not necessarily the right mind decision. Just because of like those realities, which you know I felt like was a sacrifice worth taking. And what I meant by that is like, um, yes, like money's money, and it serves a great purpose, and especially here in this in the states, like student loan debt is a real thing for adults, especially post college. Um, so that reality I knew that I was going to have to face later on, but I think what I gained through living at Serrano Village and choosing to be neighbors with this world was so much more life giving, and would change the world in perspective and the way I see it way more than just having a cushion scholarship that will allow my monthly payment to be lower 4 years later. Like that didn't mean anything. It was really those experiences that helped me make that decision. um, but yeah, I mean, it felt automatic. It also felt like the the right thing to do. And just go back to the school and say, and just a little bit of like the insight on that. This scholarship, and what made it so unique, and I think a bigger deal than it actually was this scholarship was designed for students to be a part of community on campus, and obviously pay for housing and all of the things that a scholarship would cover. But one of the requirements was to live on campus, and that was interesting, because I still wanted to be a part of the scholarship, but reading the details of like, hey, you need to live on campus, I felt like in order to like build community, I think was some of the mission of this scholarship. Um, I felt like, man, no, like the real community that I'm really seeking to be a part of is across the street. Um, so I went to the school and I said, hey, like I'm not looking to bend rules, but I'm just wondering if you can apply this scholarship to this apartment complex, when in reality is going to be save you guys a lot more money than paying for a really wonderful suite here on campus. Um, but for whatever reason, it's hard to like remember, they couldn't. And in hindsight, I think it's silly. But maybe they were just trying to protect the integrity of the program or the scholarship. But whatever, I still stick to the gut feeling, which was automatic. There was something much more valuable than money, to immerse myself into cultures of the world. And I'm so glad I did, because it changed my worldview and it changed my perspective. It changed the way I cared for people. It even today, like my business ethics and how I welcome people into the shop. Um, it's not with conditions. It's an arms wide open approach, because I've been able to see the lowest of the low, and I recognize when someone needs help. And as a business owner, to implement those ethics into your day to day operations and share that with your staff, like I don't know if I could say that if I would have stayed in a very comfortable space. Um, so yeah, automatic is the word that comes to mind. And it was very easy, uh, because of the reality of people's hearts, were at the table. Um, and I think that speaks louder than, you know, money.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was just thinking about, you know, making a decision like that, making a big leap in of faith, of, you know, trust, to go, you know, do a 360, or is really brave. But what you learn in hindsight, I think, is that you gain so much more. You know, you said that, yes, money is, you know, I mean, that helps us in our very safe first world sort of lifestyles. But in fact, there's something that's far greater that you gain from walking across the road, being immersed in different cultures, because you learn from the people who have been put in these terrible situations a lot of the time, and who have escaped from heartbreak, tragedy, whatever. But there is still something incredibly beautiful that we get when we have that interaction with them. And I think it's a decision that I actually champion. I think, yeah, good on you. It's fantastic. It's really great, because what you have gained and what you will continue to gain and continue to be able to offer to others, you know, in your mentorship, in offering people the chance to learn English, perhaps if they came and worked in your coffee shop or whatever, and get some on the ground experience, is really invaluable. It's wonderful. Anybody else got something to say here?
Thank you for that reassurance.
Mr. Pieper.
There is a film about a Zen monk, and it's the guy speaks about the experience when they all go together in the village, because they live in this monastery, and then from time to time they go to the village and they ask for, I'm looking for the word, you know, if you stay on the street and you're asking for, how would you call that?
Begging.
Arms, yeah. ALMS, arms.
Okay. AOMS.
No, L.
ALMS.
Alms. Yes, Almosen. In German it's Almosen, alms.
Alms.
And the Zen monk and the Zen master of the monastery, he says, what we actually do is that we help those people who give something to get rid of something. And I found it beautiful that the idea of giving away money or alms makes you lighter in that idea. And it's just a different way of perception, you know, that giving something, and that always brings in the question of ethics, you know, and that question, like, do you have to give, or is it out of guilt, or you know, where does it come from? But thinking of it to make you lighter, physically, actually, maybe, I find that very beautiful. And in the same time, I've been at the library, because I work at the library in these days when I can, to it's just an inspiring surrounding, and also it helps me to concentrate, because at home there's so many things that I feel I need to do, but at the library, and I'm kind of bound to the chair, you know, and gotta get the work done. And you know, and so at the library, I got some books, and beautiful books about interiors. And I sat down, and there's a central place here, and there's a lot of homeless people and addicts and alcoholics, you know, at that place. It's about 300 meters from here. And suddenly, and there's a lot of kids in this book, and beautiful interiors, but most of them have children, babies, or, you know, like not toddlers, but between 5 and 12 or 13. And I felt so guilty suddenly because of it reminded me of myself. My parents are architects and they're fans of the Bauhaus and minimalism, and there's so much wealth at home. There's been so much, books and design and good food and having a house, and I was so protected and I felt so guilty suddenly, and I felt also how limited it has been to grow up, because it was a kind of a magic wonderland almost. And then I had this switch moment and I thought, well, if there's something universe or mystic or God or however you want to call it, something other higher than our intelligence or higher than our mind, then I'm certain that that didn't happen to make me feel guilty. But I could actually feel that I was lucky and I could be happy about it. But it was such a transformative moment, to think of it that, okay, that's a interior design book and they mention all the designers' names and all of that, and it's well made. And I'm also working in that kind of industry from time to time, that we're doing advertisement, we're doing making people look good, but most of the people on this planet, they don't have access to any of that kind of lifestyle. The bigger part of the our fellow humans live in poverty. And so if you think of it, what are the central things? Then that's the emotions, the connections, then that's relationships, it's hope, it's feeling supported. And when you empower refugees through English classes, and I don't know if you're still doing that, what is the kind of understanding you can give to someone who is on his own, who's without parent, and who feels alone at this early age? How do you What do you say?
Yeah. Excuse me. Thank you for that question. I would like to comment real quick on what you said, kind of that exposure in the book that you saw. Um, I think that's a really beautiful thing, because I think a lot of people that come from, um, you use the word guilt or whatever, something similar, of like not really feeling, um, the other side of that. I feel like that exposure as well can be very um, transformative, and you even said it, whether this is good fortune or not, but like that reality of being able to become a giver and being able to offer your gifts and your excellence and your knowledge, um, into the circles that you are a part of. I think if that shift happens in your heart, um, and you know everyone's heart, right? Whether they're a CEO or if they're on the streets, there's a place for everybody, and I think that's the really beautiful thing that we need to remember. Um, Sorry, I just wanted to share that because I can even I can hear how much you're absorbing, how much you're learning, through the work that you do, um, and the giftings that you have, and how maybe you can see how that can be applied on the day to day, to whomever is in your circle. Um, and that I love that what you said about generosity, like giving is actually making you lighter. Um, and that can be money, that can be time, that can be resources. Um, yeah, I think it really does make us lighter, but it also allows our hands to be open again to be able to do that again, and I feel like that's a currency as well, and it's not money. That currency is love, and like that's really beautiful. So you reminded me of that as you were expressing um, that story. So um, when you're when we're talking about empowering refugees through English. Um, I mean, similar to, I think all of us can ask this in our form is like, what do we have that we don't really have to work for? And I think that's our language, like that's our giftings, our hobbies, things that come automatic. So being able to offer that to these refugee communities um, was so like life giving. And like David said it earlier, it's like if you could just tell a student or a parent who is studying for a citizenship exam, on the other side of this is so much opportunity. Um, like that can truly uh, empower in a way that we would never know, and maybe we're around enough to like see a life grow and see where that goes. But um, I wish I understood that more when I was actually in the classrooms day to day than I am now, because it's true. Like being able to offer education, being able to offer, you know, daily activities or daily practices in what we take for granted in our comfort in our culture. So the reality was, it wasn't just English, it was how to plug in an appliance, how to turn on a microwave, how to, left or right faucets, water. Like all of these simple day to day things were completely foreign to this community. Um, so when I was in those places or in those classrooms in this community, some of it looked very educational, and it was, you know, tutoring and guiding my friends through English. But a lot of I would say, the transformation really happened when we were at a table, and I was having dinner, and they were showing me their foods and how they prepare it. Um, and we'll walk over to my apartment, and first time they saw a laptop, and like I was kind of showing them this and that, and I had a dog at the time, and like so there's just like this like day to day like life, and I think that's what I like to describe is it's the everyday stuff of life that you can really enter with a family or a refugee, that can be so life giving, and it's not just English, um, but I think that's the type of like empathetic understanding, the empathetic approach, um, that helped me in that moment, because education, absolutely, like knowledge is power, right? It's a very common cliche, and that will never change. But I also feel like connection with our hearts and human to human can truly also move us forward in a way that, partnered with education, uh, can truly, get us. Um, so honestly, thinking back on like how I was able to like have those conversations or enter those dining tables, was in a way that was kind of beyond me. Like there was a very motivated heart that I had to show up and be a part of this my new reality. Um, but also there's it. I think I received so much from those moments too. And here I am, almost 10 years later, talking to wonderful people all over the world about how refugees changed my life. Um, and like those families, like I credit them, because at the moment when I was with them, one thing that played through my mind that made me show up every day was moving out of this comfortable campus into this uh, apartment complex village. It was called Toronto Village, ironically. Um, like that's one decision, right? But I even knew, even when I had my small little studio and I had these wonderful neighbors, that this wasn't like a simulation experience. Like I wanted to like dive in deep, because the reality is, like, let's say things went really wrong and it got dangerous. Like I can I can go home. I can call my mom. I can go to my friend's house. I can go somewhere. I can escape, right? But like the reality is, like, it's hard to simulate. what they've gone through, because truly to get them here is a layers that we would just never understand. And I'm like, man, I'm not here to simulate a refugee experience. I'm here to like gain, hopefully, wisdom, hopefully, perspective, um, because yeah, that's a little bit of my purpose today, and I credit my time to, with the refugees to give me that perspective, like I want to strive for justice, I want to strive for peace, I want to respect the dignity of all human beings, and doing that then, and doing that over and over and over again is a place that is an idea I'll say yes to, So I hope that answers your question, people. Like it was more than English. It was the everyday stuff of life that I felt was just so easy to get into. And it was and there was a connection with the heart there, like versus someone sitting down and like reading a book with you. Like if that person's able to go home with you and, have a meal and talk about what you love to do every day. I feel like that's relationships, and that can help transform too.
Yeah,
I was
thanks.
thinking. Oh, sorry. Big discussion. Always bringing up stuff there, Jesse. It was Christmas Eve a couple of years ago in Northern Australia, and I met an Indigenous man lying in the gutter, and he might have been drunk, or he might some other reason why he wasn't very conscious. But anyway, I looked in my wallet, didn't have a lot of cash. I think it was a $10 or $20, and I rolled it up and stuck it in his hands, and he sort of clasped at it, and then I walked away back to my hotel. And then I also remember a time in Prague, a violinist player. He wasn't very good, but he was in the -20, and he was trying to play his violin to earn a few coins on the bridge. And I just emptied my pocket there. And then in the refugee, it's more they were fed and clothed at that point once they got to the processing, but it was a poorness of spirit. And I'm sure that those two other individuals that I just threw a little bit of cash at also had a poorness of spirit to get to the places that they got to. But the spiritual part of a human being is far more important than the material part. And we used to look after, amongst other groups in one of the camps, Sudanese refugees, African Sudanese, and what you said, it's more than just rendering English. English is very pragmatic and does have a point so that they can assimilate and possibly get work when they go to America or Australia. But the most important thing that they were looking for was actually kindness. And what they actually did, now that you've brought all this up, is they invited the teachers that had been teaching them to a dinner. So they scrounged around the camp, they scrounged for the ingredients, etc., and even little bits of money that they had or whatever to buy what they needed. And they put on a dinner which service-wise had them waitering on us as teachers. It was very humbling. And other guests that they wanted to return a kindness to. And these people worked all day preparing their traditional meals, and they wanted us to come and enjoy something back from them, the kindness. So it was a transaction of exchange on a footing that they could be equal with. They weren't just getting taking from us; they were giving in kind. And when you talk about the English classes and the more dimensions of the interaction, I think about with their needs in spirit, that it's kindness that their spirit is yearning after all the trauma and all of the rejection and the intimidation that they've had to put up with. So yeah, thank you for raising that with us.
I also want to add to that too. The exchange. I said earlier that I work with an organisation, a social enterprise called Space to Be, which is an enterprise that allows refugees and new migrants to come to Australia and learn skills through art. A lot of them are artistic people and have not been able to have the opportunity to express that in this country. And so it's a shop and it's a social enterprise, and I do a lot of mentoring, and I got the opportunity to create an event with one of Australia's biggest comedians, Judith Lucy, where we got a number of people who'd been involved with Space to Be to come and tell their stories about their experiences of coming to Australia. And, Judith is a very funny, very droll woman. And, the two of us were sort of thinking, oh my God, how are we going to do this? So we started asking them over a series of weeks experiences of their life that's common to all of us. Things like, what were the first sounds you would hear of a morning in your country, or what's your favorite food if you could go back and eat a food that your mother or your father or your grandmother cooked or something like that. And we also ask them to tell us a story in their own language. Now, there were 12 of us. Not one of us could understand anybody's language except for English. It was the common language. But what we found is when people spoke in their own language and told us a story, at the end of it, everybody was so thrilled to be able to speak their language, express their story without having to fish for English words or words that are not. And it was quite empowering because every one of them said, thank you for listening. And it particularly made Judith and I think, oh my goodness, that's what people really want. They want to be heard, and they want their stories to make a difference. And I guess going in and being able to with David certainly, and with you, Jesse, to be able to just sit with people and just listen. And even if you can't understand their words in the language that you understand, there's a connection. There's a real heart connection, and that's what I'm getting from you, Jesse, a lot of the time in the way you're speaking, is that there's a heart connection. It doesn't matter if the language is not a common language. The common language is actually the heart language, and that's really big. That's really big. I think we're going to have a bit of a break here now. Am I on schedule here? If we have a bit of a break, is that right? Why don't we do that and we'll come back? Or not.
It's hard for them to speak for themselves or to provide for themselves. And if I can contribute in any way, I saw this as a perfect place for that. Because me being a native to Phoenix, and not only to Phoenix, but this country, knowing English, knowing the culture, knowing my way around, knowing how to use simple appliances in a household, that is gold, that's treasure to someone who is completely foreign to America. I lived, at GCU for 3 years, and I was their neighbors, and I just felt like some type of responsibility to like show up and be that help. And so as I started to come here a little more, I started to see the reality of the need here, and just felt like it was a calling to come here.
So Jesse, oh my goodness, he is a phenomenal person in general, just from his giving spirit and his openness and his willing to offer his help in any way that he can. When you start working with refugees, their whole sense of life can consume and change the way you live your life. There's a whole different type of culture when you're looking at working with refugees, and if you're not mentally prepared to adjust to that, it can seem strange to you. But the fact that he's willing to dedicate his time and is really pushing and has done a phenomenal job recruiting students from GCU in order to bring more services to help empower these young kids, especially in terms of improving their education levels and giving them the opportunity to succeed, which is the whole reason they came to the United States. They were given this opportunity to go to school, get an education, and empower themselves. And I think it's fantastic that Jesse has kind of really given them that opportunity and that kind of leg up to make that all happen.
Obviously, my faith is a really big part of my life. Coming here was because I felt a calling to come here. So the same calling and voice that I listened to come here is the same voice I listened to on how to be available to these people of the nations. And that looks different every day. It really does. Sometimes we don't need to conversate. We don't need to have dialogue, but it's just a helping hand. It's smiling, it's laughter, the universal language. And through that, it's just the doors open that way, And it's beautiful that we have opportunities like teaching English. It's beautiful that we have opportunities like congregating and getting the youth together and having playtime and gospel time. And I just see that as very important. I don't want to lose sight of my mission to come here. I kind of view it as a missionary because I'm like one of the only Americans here. Obviously, I have a heart for the people of the world. It would be a dream to visit all these places, visit every continent. But this is just a beautiful reminder that regardless where I'm at, peace, everyone needs to feel that peace. There's a lot of just division, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, uneasiness, whatever you want to call it. This tattoo right here reminds me to pray for those countries. So we need volunteers to come with an open heart and say, how can I be available? How can God use me? How can we empower these kids? Because ultimately, the best way to really understand is to try, and I know that's a difficult task, is to try to put yourself in their shoes, being in a country where necessarily you didn't choose, but you're there for whatever reason, and you have to make a living. And whether you're a child and you're going to school with a bunch of Americans who speak English, or you're an adult who you were self-efficient at one point in your home, in your country, and now you're in a completely different place and you're trying to get there. What I get here is a sense of urgency. You live it, you breathe it, you see it, and what I mean by that, you see the different people, you see the different cultures, you breathe it, when just walking through here, you could just smell the different cultural foods cooking, and being here, you get to realize that this is where you live, and it just gives that sense of urgency that I didn't get at GCU. But what I've learned is that my 3 years at GCU, I've learned what that community is and how that has empowered me to become who I am today. And if I can take what I've learned there and somehow, even if it's a little bit, come and establish that community here, then I know what it's done for me, and I want to offer that to the nations here. And I know that's dreaming big, but like I said, I'm only a small part of already what's going on here. And, God has a plan here, and I'm just being obedient to my part.
Welcome back to Global Sunday, and hello to everybody who's watching. It's really great that you're tuning in wherever you are in the world. It's fabulous. So hi to Mamma Mia, Zulu Pavarotti, Miss Classic, of course, Judy Giddings, Jayla, Trevor, and whoever else is around. Thanks for tuning in. It's fantastic to have your presence, and I hope you're enjoying this show. And we're going to go to Pippo, I think, from here.
There are more questions. So, Jesse, more questions for you. I hope you're having good coffee supply there.
I need it.
Well, you bet. There's more to come, and please tell us more about you, because it's thrilling and it's interesting, and we want to know how and when you understood that you are a leader and what it implies for you. You know, accepting being born with such a quality. So, what does it require from you? How do you respond to the demands coming from such a competence?
It's very kind. Thank you for just like prefacing that question like that. At this stage of my life, like just recognizing and understanding my platform today as a business owner who's involved in many different circles. I think it's really important to take ownership of that. And the reason I say that is because earlier in life, like whether somebody told me or I didn't quite believe it. I think there's leadership in all of us. However, when the opportunity presents itself and you can really take ownership of your uniqueness and your giftings and what you are able to offer your community, your family, like doing that, you now offer the world and your people in your community something that no one else can, because you are embracing your uniqueness. So I think of that when I think of like just the lenses of looking at leadership in general. I think it's we're all people of influence in some way. Some of us are called to be leaders to the masses. Some of us are called to be leaders to our next door neighbor, and that's it. But all of them require influence. All of them require us like really looking inside and owning that. So just to answer your question, I think I from a young age was really the example of leadership looked one way, and then as I matured and got older, it looked very different. But I think a really safe way to enter it right now in this moment is and how I respond to demands and what leadership requires of me today is pretty unique. Like I shared with you guys, I'm the owner of a coffee shop, and I'm a brand new owner. Like this is still my what I call my first year, because I'm going through a full first calendar year of actually being in business and understanding demands, understanding management, understanding all of the things that it takes, right? I won't bore you with those details. However, I think the way I respond is similar to what Claire said earlier. It's like, I want to lead by example. I want to be a servant leader first, because I think that's such a kind way to do it. And kindness in leadership, I think, is a way that is more receptive to a lot of people who are really hungry for guidance, who are hungry for healthy relationships. So as a business owner, like I really want to lead with that, and I share that with my staff at work. It's in our training. Um, we want to be kind. We want to be hospitable. Um, and the way we share that vision is, you know, kindness and hospitality is more than, hello, goodbye, like thanks for coming in. Kindness and hospitality is really seeing the person in front of you and acknowledging them. Um, if we have the time and space, uh, just extending a very, extending kind words, right? So I think that's what's special to the leadership, at in my world right now is like if we can lead with that kindness and be an example, um, to a world that comes to us for a need, that we can send them out not with just a great product, but they're recognized, and the hospitality that they felt coming into this coffee shop, um, was was a bit more than just the transaction of them paying for a product. And I share that because I think it really speaks to my leadership style, which I've said is like if I can serve first, then I would love to. I think what that has done for me is says, hey, I'm like for me, I am willing to follow any one of you guys if you guys are willing to do it first. And I think that speaks to a lot of people. I think it's a really beautiful model, um, and I found that pretty effective. So um, I embrace it. I'm probably going to embrace that in business and whatever journey's next. Is hey, I want to do it first, and then I want to teach you with kindness. I want to teach you with grace. I want to teach you with love, um, and that's what I'll lead with. But yeah, kindness is big. Kindness is big, Claire, because it's all over our shop too. We have the saying, work hard, be kind. Choose kindness. On our coasters, on our sleeves, when we give them a cup, it says "Be kind." Um, so we want to share that with the world, and the way we do that for our little small community is if we have students and business owners and educators coming in for a small practical cup of coffee, we want to treat them with such love and kindness that when they go out and about, even though it's a small gesture, you guys, like, you know, we can try to make a special moment happen in that quick time. So um, that's what leadership looks like for me right now. Um, is how do I serve you, and how do I be kind to you? And there's a lot more practical things that goes into that, but if I could just boil it down to those two things, I feel like the world could be a better place with more servants and more people who are kind.
It's a really great recipe that you probably should put up on your menu,
Right.
your menu board. I would say with a smattering of a good sense of humor, because I think that is probably the gateway to allowing kindness. When people can laugh and share a joke, or just observe something that makes us laugh, or creates a wry smile, I think it goes so much further than always having to be correct, etc. So yes, I'd say you've got the beginnings of a fantastic recipe for success, and it tastes good. Kindness tastes good, actually. I think cup of kindness. So yeah, good on you.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got another question for you, Jesse. It says, I quote what you said in an article, so I hope this is correct. I always trust Longani on these matters.
Yeah.
I think people are more receptive to what you have to say and to take what you have to offer than they know it's genuine. Oh, sorry, when they know it's genuine. So the question detail is, what does genuine mean to you? Can you explain?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember, yeah, I do remember saying that, and in the context of that moment in my life, but also it translates today. So, uh, what genuine means to me is if you can if you can be genuine to 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 your neighbor, to anybody, what you are doing is you're offering um, common ground and kind of leveling with people, and there's such a dignifying reality about that. And in that moment, what I felt was, if we can remember, like coming from this very prestige, safe campus, and coming to this, refugee community, I stayed there, and it became a task for me, and a hope that I would get a healthy flow of students from the university to come and give their time and energy and resources to this community, um, that was, that needed it. But in the moments that wasn't happening, I started to question like my heart behind why I was there. Um, and that's where this came from. It was like if people know that you're there for the right reasons, because a lot of people will show up because it was a program the school offered, right? And you went, you checked it off, and you went back home, and it was done. Um, but I felt saying, hey, I see you guys. I not only do I am I showing up to come and be a part of like this program that my school offers, I felt like that was a genuine approach. And if I can try to put myself in their shoes, and I saw a group of students once a week on a Wednesday for an hour, like I know that's coming, but I know it's part of a program. But if I saw someone show up a bit more regularly and was very interested in what I wanted, what my life was about, that's what genuine is to me. Um, so, and also like I mentioned it earlier, and when I was talking about role models and mentorship, sense of vulnerability. Vulnerability is hard, you guys. Like, but there's a lot of healthy opportunity that comes when you enter vulnerable spaces, um, and transparency. I've had leaders who had it all put together, and later I found out that it was a facade, and it was actually pretty hurtful. And I actually have leaders in my life that were very transparent from the very beginning, and it allowed me to see them as human, as authentic and real. And I remember what it did to my heart and how it like really empowered me to be authentic and to be genuine. Um, because moments in life is full of adversity and difficult things, and if you can say that to someone who needs to hear it, say, hey, like life is hard, and you're going to deal with really hard things, and not just try to give the solution, but to really allow them space to feel the hurt and the pain or the confusion or doubt or whatever it is. That's a genuine gift that you can give someone, and everything that comes after that, which is the hope, the aspirations, the motivation, the push for more. But just being authentic and being genuine, and presenting the table for what's on it and not what you think should be on it is what genuine means to me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, so I've got a question that's slightly it's not on the question board. Do you keep in touch, Jesse, with any of the people that you made relationships with or interacted with in the Serrano village nowadays?
There's a couple families that I still stay in touch with.
Yeah, great.
And some of the volunteers that I was a part of, um, in kind of the teaching, the day-to-day teaching, like they're still at it, and that's been really great. And
Yeah,
one of the programs that I helped develop with mobilizing the students to help the refugees, um, the structure's still there. It's done at a different apartment complex because the school wanted to develop and ended up taking and relocating them again. So, which is a whole annoying situation in itself. However, yeah, there's a few families which have been really sweet, but also some of the volunteers to see who are still engaged and active has been also really great to keep in touch with. So
Yeah,
that's a
that's
good
that's
question.
fantastic.
It's an important question, because sometimes
Yeah.
moments like this in your life, but then there's nothing to like reference it again. So
Mm.
being able to like say, hey, like no, this is sustainable. There's longevity
Yes,
in
that's
it.
right.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's you're making a commitment to say, well, this is for the long term. These are the um, this is the path that I want to continue to take in whatever form it does. But you're seen as not just being there as a flash in the pan. You're there for the long term for a lot of people, and I think that's really important. And that's part of being transparent and genuine, and that you're offering yourself, for whatever. But the other question was, so how did your
For
experience?
you, I have one for you, Claire. I mean, we're all alpha animals here, right? Band leader and director and business owner. And how's it for you guys? Like David and Claire. What does it imply? Be the band leader or be the composer or I think that's an interesting topic to
Band leader.
Band leader.
Well, I've never been a band leader.
David, have you been a band leader?
Sorry.
Oh, David's not awake. Come on, wake up.
I
The
always,
sun's just about to. Come
I
on.
always wanted,
The decaf.
no, I always wanted to be a mafia boss, and I love that line from The Godfather. He says, "I hold my friends closely, but my enemies even closer." I think that's the best philosophy in mafia leadership. In real leadership, when you have a smoking gun or an assassin waiting for you, I think the leaders that I've most admired are the ones that get their hands dirty with you, that they're on the journey with you. 90% of the leaders that I unfortunately come across in work and thing are leaders that like to have their names painted on their car parks and hold meetings to remind you that they are your leaders. But the leaders that are really interested in, like I'm sure in your cafe, it gets to, the dishes have to be done or something. There's something running behind. You're down amongst your people, and when the lowliest of your workers watches you in action, not just pontificating from a desk in the back office, and you have a respect that can't be surpassed. And I also feel that the Japanese seem to have a very good basic idea of corporate leadership. Well, they used to anyway, where they used to make that the heir to the company might be the company owner's son, instead of just being a rich kid that's given privileges immediately, is actually made to do all the different departments of the business that they're going to run. So I think Japanese have understood the wisdom in that leaders know all the ins and outs as best they can of the business and that sort of thing. And I think that would engender relationships as well that will put them in good stead as an effective leader later on, not just a person who wears a suit and then people assume that they're the leader and that they're the boss. I think and leadership, as we know from Mahatma Gandhi's and Christ and all sorts of people, is not necessarily glamorous experience, but it's a very gritty, down to earth experience. So that's my comment on it.
That's really great.
Yeah. I can't really add to that. Apart from, I think you've covered it, David. That's pretty cool. I mean,
but can you guys relate with me when you've been involved with meeting somebody from another company or a business, and you know that there's just all this fabrication, either they're better dressed than the other people in the room, or they have more money to go to the hairdresser before the meeting, or I'm not sure what it is, but they have to advertise for some reason that they're the leader, whereas the really effective leaders have a presence. You know, they just have that presence when you meet them. So
Yeah.
It reminds me of missing, like, big shout out to Ken Dutton, who's not here today, who says, you know, when you're the leader, you're the one who's the first on the hill, but then you're gonna be shot first also.
that must be
So
the American Army.
yes, you know, and then you're gonna suddenly gonna say, like, where is everybody? You know, like, you have led them to up the hill. You know, when you're gonna get shot. There's also something that's related to money that's, I think, makes me think of ownership. You know, like once you pay someone, then I often experience that's kind of owning the right to do certain things. So
But also, people, you know, if you are paid and if you are genuine, you've got to step up. You know, there's a certain, you know, there's an obligation to actually put your money where your mouth is. So, you know, to genuine leaders, I think, just have to step up and go, right, okay, you've asked me to do this. Let's give it my best shot. And they're the ones who actually are probably the ones who haven't been to the hairdresser, but they're there on the ground doing this stuff. Oh,
Nothing
have
wrong,
I?
Claire, with going to a hairdresser. Nothing wrong with going to a
Clearly,
hairdresser.
I haven't, and I've put a scarf on. What a leader!
I need to go to a hairdresser, but anyway.
But yeah. I mean, you know, if you think about our parents and all of that. I mean, being a parent, and or if you are, I don't know, but you just have to continue to lead because you've got the responsibility of others to think of, and you know, it's a big job, and why not do it well?
I've got to visit your coffee shop, Jesse. I think I know where it is. I think Pepper was correct that we were taken there, and we had a few pleasant moments there. But it was one of the questions actually is asking about the ambience, which you've kind of covered when you talked about, you know, making the experience at your shop to be something very, very special, very personal, and from the staff and heart given. I'm not going to do comparisons for the sake of comparing experiences. I didn't express that well, but I went recently to a what they call a boutique coffee shop. I've never been to one in my life, in a ritzy sort of an area. I'll tell Claire about it secretly later. And the waiter came out and explained in great detail. It was like a value add. It's probably legitimate as well. Where the beans, the whole process of what I was purchasing. It wasn't just this blend. It was, you know, it was from some part of Colombia and how the sun. It was very romantic. It was a bit like when I was in Luxembourg. They were talking about how they make champagne actually, and I was quite amazed. It was a bit interesting because you were allowed to put on music, which is great. I like that opportunity, but they have a record player there, and they had some very heavy metal music at the time from a patron in the ambience of this gourmet boutique. So it was a little bit confronting, but if I think I know that the place, yours is called Porch Prescott, is that correct? And where does the name come from? And what's the context of Porch, which is so coherent with your philosophy that you mentioned before about serving coffee?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so something that we didn't discuss earlier that just helpful to know and understanding, you know, my journey in business is the porch was actually it was existing, and I took over ownership, and the reason, there's an important factor to that because I wasn't looking for necessarily just anything to like purchase and like get into business. Like I really had to believe in at least some of the bones and some of the grounding of what I was gonna say. Hey, I want to put my name on it. That I want to put my spin on it. So when we're talking about name, the porch was there. I didn't change that because I actually liked. I felt like I could expand the vision and mission of what a porch is. You know, so a porch is supposed to be inviting, and there's great conversations on a porch, and sometimes it's quick interactions and hellos and goodbyes and I love you, I'll see you later, and sometimes it's like hours of just really diving deep. So it's just that essence of what would happen on someone's porch or patio. I was like, okay, that's some good grounding that I can go with. And then the coffee conversation community, that I really took that and like started to really give life to it and really define it and help my staff guide people through what we want the porch to be. So in comparison to this coffee shop you went to, like, I've seen those coffee shops and I've seen specialty coffee shops, and like they do it really, really well. Like it's excellent, it's wonderful, because their purpose is coffee and product, and they excel at it in just such a beautiful way. For me, it's like that's only the starting point. We're and just calling it what it is and being honest with myself and my approach is like, if I bought this and now it's mine, like there's a benefit in having something that was established, but also the downside is just there's a level of creativity and just adaptation that you have because you didn't start it from the ground up. So in those conversations and kind of filtering and sorting out what do I want the porch to be, like today, reflecting on all these conversations that we've had about, the my eyes being exposed and experiences with refugees, like all of that today is yeah, I think I did say it earlier, but we want to have a arms wide hospitality, and we want people to feel welcomed. We want people to feel loved, and a small detail, you guys, that I just want to be. I think it's just helpful as we talk about this is we share a building with a church that meets on Sunday, but it's only on Sunday, and then Monday through Saturday, it's event space. So if you found us online, we have a lot of space. It's a warehouse. In the 50s, it was an old linen and supply for all of the businesses in the downtown area. And the reason I share that is because, we live in a predominantly small Christian town. However, not everyone that comes is of the faith, and I'm very sensitive to that. Like I really want, so that's why I said it could be a benefit because, this is a predominantly Christian town. But however, I want people from all walks of life, all walks of faith, to feel like they have a seat at the porch, and my work with refugees, like you get a sense of different traditions and religions and perspectives, and it's helped me shape how I view the world, not only in my own personal faith but also as a human. So the ethics and principles that I hold in my heart is how can someone come in and feel that peace, and that hospitality, because hospitality is not just how you arrange feng shui or have everything really beautiful. Hospitality is like, do people feel peace? Do they feel comfort? Do they feel like their spirit's at rest when they walk in? And I've had conversations about those exact things, and those are the best compliments I've can receive. is that people feel safe, whether they're a part of a faith religion or not. And I think that really speaks to something beyond me. I said it earlier, like, we want to strive for a just world, a dignifying world, and we want to respect people's, dignity and give them dignity. And um, so that's how it's shaped how I want to do business. Do I have it figured out? Absolutely not. Does it hurt? You know, me understanding money, me understanding finances and books and all of this is from a business perspective. I probably am not making the smartest money decisions, but I know that. I didn't get in it for money though, because there's a currency that speaks louder than dollar signs, and that's transformation and love. So, do I want to do this for a long time? Yes. So I am going to put the diligent work in figuring out, like, hey, these things need to be in place to sustain. However, once I get that, I want this place to be transformative. I want community to come here and have a say in what is going on at the porch. So that's how. I guess that's how I would say I am approaching my life as an entrepreneur. Probably not the smartest, but I feel like it's what feels right now. And if I
Well, I can see a big difference there, Jesse. The restaurant coffee that I just described as boutique, more elitism. It's more about showing off in some sense. But as soon as you sat down to have your coffee, the ambience was disconnected, was destroyed. So I think you're very on the money or on the mark of it when you say that you buy your coffee, it's got to be quality as a product to a point, but just as importantly, if not more importantly, you creating the context and the environment where all this other social benefit can come about. Yeah.
David, I sort of,
Maybe David should have ordered a different kind of coffee. No, just a suggestion, Maybe that kind
three-quarter decaf soy latte.
no fat, no fat.
No soy. What I was going to say, there is a place though, David, for the artisanal approach. I think we've got to appreciate that, if people want to go to that much trouble to research and find the essence of a particular bean or a particular song or whatever, we've got to respect the artist there. But I do understand that it often lacks heart and soul. What I want to say, Jesse, is in Australia, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in America, that there's a front porch and there's a back porch often. And what goes on the front porch isn't necessarily what goes on in the back porch. The back porch is a bit for, okay, we've got to have a really deep conversation. The front porch is, it's on show to the public. And it seems that you've got both the front porch and the back porch in the one porch. And I want to come and sit on that porch at some stage and have one of your coffees, because it sounds like, the kind of place where people want to continue to come. It becomes a regular thing. You would go there, 10 o'clock in the morning for your mid-morning coffee or a cup of tea or whatever, have a chat with whoever's there and build a relationship that will continue for years to come. Even if you move on from that situation, it will be a memory that's kept. I had that situation years ago with, in fact, where I first met Ken Ludden in a place called Brouhaha in St Kilda in Melbourne. And the woman there, Simonette, who's now deceased, sadly, created this amazing atmosphere where people just came and sat, and at different times of the day, and you would get to know your clan, And then that would be it. You'd go off, you'd feel great. You've been at this fantastic place, and then your day would start well. When Simonet closed the cafe, all of the people who went there on a regular basis gathered, and we had this party out on the street, and people from different time slots talked about, so the very early morning, 7 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m., people who, go for a jog and then come to a cafe and then get on with their day would talked about their experience. Those of us who had dropped children off at school and come to the cafe afterwards talked about our experience and the people in that environment. And it was and it still resonates now. And, I've known Ken for, I don't know how many years now, 15, 16 years, that you meet the most extraordinary people and you have the most extraordinary experiences over something as basic as a coffee, a cup of tea, a toasted sandwich or whatever. And it just creates memories, and it creates a sense of connection that is really, really important. So hopefully I will eventually be able to travel and get over to the porch, and it's still around, because it sounds like a wonderful place.
Yes.
So we're selling tickets now. Jesse, the 10 cafe card, you can get that already, Claire. So,
Bring 9, you get your 10th for free. Wacko.
Since we're having a kind of porch situation here, which I like a lot, I want to propose, and being a director myself, of course, I want to change the rules also, because I'm not only the German guy who sticks to the rules all the time. Like our dear friend Ken Ladden mentioned recently, everything has to be correct. But this is a very special edition of the Global Sunday because, usually we have the news and we have also the NGOs but today I want to invite you. I don't know how it is organized, Jesse, if you get the questions beforehand or if it's a live situation, but if it's okay for you, I want to invite you for the last 20 minutes that we keep on with the way we've been having our conversation on the porch, rather than going through the questions we still have on the list, because that seems very organic to me. It seems, yeah. So Claire and David, you have already kicked it off in that way, and I think it's lovely. So. And I know that Lungani, that's the beautiful thing about this show, that we honor the guest and we honor the energy that we get, and if it suits the format, then we can also go through these questions and that some of the things that have come up. Now, I'm known for having long monologues, so I'm going to pass on. So you're going to be able to not hear only from me.
Is Wolf still there? Oh, because I thought the next.
We just got rid of the questions, Lungani. Officially, everybody approved that.
Lungani's not listening.
We're not gonna ask. I mean, I hope you enjoyed your time on the back porch. How was? Okay.
It's hard for them to speak for themselves or to provide for themselves. And if I can contribute in any way, I saw this as a perfect place for that. Because me being a native to Phoenix, and not only to Phoenix, but this country, knowing English, knowing the culture, knowing, my way around, knowing how to use simple appliances in a household, that is gold, that's treasure to someone who is completely foreign to America. I live, at GCU for 3 years, and I was their neighbors, and I just felt like some type of responsibility to like show up and be that help. And so as I started to come here a little more, I started to see the reality of the need here, and just felt like it was a calling to come here.
So Jesse, oh my goodness, he is a phenomenal person in general, just from his giving spirit and his openness and his willing to offer his help in any way that he can. When you start working with refugees, their whole sense of life can consume and change the way you live your life. There's a whole different type of culture when you're looking at working with refugees, and if you're not mentally prepared to adjust to that, it can seem strange to you. But the fact that he's willing to dedicate his time and is really pushing and has done a phenomenal job recruiting students from GCU in order to bring more services to help empower these young kids, especially in terms of improving their education levels and giving them the opportunity to succeed, which is the whole reason they came to the United States. They were given this opportunity to go to school, get an education, and empower themselves. And I think it's fantastic that Jesse has kind of really given them that opportunity and that kind of leg up to make that all happen.
Obviously, my faith is a really big part of my life. Coming here was because I felt a calling to come here. So the same calling and voice that I listen to come here is the same voice I listen to on how to be available to these people of the nations. And that looks different every day. It really does. Sometimes we don't need to conversate. We don't need to have dialogue, but it's just a helping hand. It's smiling. It's laughter, the universal language. And through that, it's just the doors open that way, And it's beautiful that we have opportunities like teaching English. It's beautiful that we have opportunities like congregating and getting the youth together and having playtime and gospel time. And I just
Welcome back, everybody, to the Global Sunday with our lovely guest, Jesse. It's so good to have you here, and I already feel like we're all having a coffee together on the porch. And I almost sat on the couch, but that's just because I was looking at David on his couch. So having started a business, and you spoke about being successful. Before we talked about the fact that you actually have an open hand. You said you have a free hand when you give something away. And I really liked that idea, and it made me think of the dancing and then contact improvisation, which is one specific area of dancing that has developed mainly in the 1970s. There's a saying that when you touch someone and when you gonna lead only, it's impossible to listen to the other, although you're in contact. So being in contact improvisation, which relies on listening and leading, it's important to feel the other one. Even though you might be leading, in physical terms, you still need to have a reception of what's happening with the other body part. And that's what I thought of. And being an entrepreneur, I guess all of us, we're entrepreneurs, because when you're doing arts as a freelancer, and we all need to take decisions and take responsibilities that people who are employed do not take, because the organization is done in a different way. So it really spoke to me what you said, that what you're doing doesn't necessarily mean being successful as a businessman, or that you made it, or and and also the question, if you're not here to learn on this planet, what else you gonna do? I mean, do you have better plans?
Right? No, it's good. Thank you for making that just correlation. It's I would like just to comment. Just being able to hear you guys speak. I wish I had the opportunity to like hear all of your guys' story, but in just the little segments that I've been able to hear you guys respond and react, like there's just a wealth of like wisdom and encouragement that I've just been able to like really receive in this time. So I just wanted to comment on that. Like you guys are excellent. So thank you for that. Um, but yeah, I agree with that concept. Of having hands out, being able to be readily to give. Um, I'm still very much in a discovery zone of where truly this is going to take me in 2 to 3 years. However, I feel like the way that I feel it should start off, it like those ingredients are being stirred right now. So um, a lot of that is I don't have the full answer for, but you know, I do want to absorb um, every day, and it's really easy to put myself in that position to absorb as much as I can today, intellectually, socially, um, how I care for myself, like the entrepreneur world. Yeah, there's a lot of adaptation, there's a lot of responsibility. Um, so all of that, being able to like prioritize every day has been what you said, like learning, like being here to learn. And what's very unique to my context here in Prescott, like I mentioned, I'm from Phoenix. There's a whole bigger plan and hope, at least a hopeful plan for communities in Phoenix that I feel very dear to be able to like provide for. I would love to do that. Um, but being here and absorbing and learning in a town that's very different culturally, um, it's not as diverse as Phoenix. It's not as big and culturally embracing as Phoenix. So there's all these factors that are challenging. However, it does bring me back to that sense of I'm here to learn, I'm here to absorb, and this intellectual intake that I'm taking, it can be very exhausting at moments. Um, However, I do feel like I'm moving in the right direction. Um, People, I really do. So, yeah.
How old are you now?
Let me see, out of three of you, who gets it right?
Mm, 31.
David?
32.
People.
31 and a half.
Oh, that means people wins.
You read his biography, that's what you did.
Right?
So obviously you express yourself through dance, do you sing, Jesse?
Claire, say it again. I'm sorry.
Do you sing? You express yourself through dance, which is, incredible. I watched your video, which is fantastic. Do you sing?
No, I don't sing.
Do you know any of your mother's songs from Guatemala?
Not a lot. I know, she used to play some of my grandmother's a little bit, but no,
Yeah.
singing is one of those gifts. I like I really wish I had, you know. However, you know, where dancing came about, it's pretty unique because my mom came from Guatemala, so I grew up in my very early years in a very heavy Guatemalan Hispanic culture. So there's a lot of Spanish. Spanish was actually my first language. A lot of salsa, merengue, you know, those Latin flavors. And then she when I was no longer with my biological dad, she married my stepdad, who I call like my dad. He's the one in prison. However, he's like really close to me in my heart. He's African American, so we entered like this very just kind of hip hop, kind of this rugged, hard, and you know, more of like music and taste and lifestyle. And then when he went to prison, I shifted to a suburb, which was predominantly, you know, just like Anglo and more of a white culture, and really embraced like new styles of music and dance. So I have like this broad stroke of like upbringing that has helped me just one appreciate all cultures and dances and expressions, but also when I share about it, or whether it's through, you know, music or um, just conversation, like I always it's always cool to like look at the significance and like the beauty of all of that. And I'm thankful that I've been able to like walk in those circles and have a deep appreciation for all of them, not only from an artistic expression, but also from culturally, you know. And it's helped me in business, you know, being able to speak to people that look like me in a town where not a lot of people look like me, being able to have a sense of people feel welcome. It's like, oh, there's a brown and black owner here, you know, and like they're coming into a town that's predominantly, you know, white, small rural America. There's like that sense that's been helpful. But also when I am talking to, you know, a lot of business owners, you know, there's just like this level of comfort that I have because I've lived through it a little bit. So, sorry, I jumped off a little bit on answering your question.
No,
but
no, that's fine.
Yeah.
But it's indicative to me that, and I'm sure Pipo, you would agree with this, that language isn't just the words that are spoken. It's actually how you express your body, and to have the number of languages, you know, body languages that you have been offered in Guatemalan history, you know, African American dance, all of that informs the way you communicate with people.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that your video was a dance video.
Yeah.
Because why not? Why not show what you can do, and why not speak those languages, however they come out?
Right. Yeah. It's inspiring. Thank you. It's good to remember that, and like I never want to lose that too. You know, like I want to be able to keep that a part of my life as long as I can. Expression through dance, whether that's myself or our wonderful producer Lungani. You know, he's visited the coffee shop and he's done some dancing in there. And you know, I'm a photographer, videographer when I'm not managing a coffee shop, and we collaborated on some fun, you know, projects. So that stuff, like, obviously has nothing to do with pulling espresso, but it's important to me, and it's important to, you know, it's a part of me, and I think it always will be. So,
I love it with the Spanish background people. They audiate, they move to music quite naturally, and I think my observation, and it's a very big generalisation, is the Anglo cultures have the same thing, and yet you watch a young 3-year-old in front of a band who's an Anglo child will audiate as well. But for some reason, the Spanish, Italian, other cultures, they encourage this. They're dancing in the kitchen with mum making meals and all sorts of things, and they can dance proper salsa before they're about 6 or 7 years old. Whereas Anglos take it up as a boutique, enjoyable hobby, and they take 15 years to master the minimum of steps. So, and I just love the way when I play music to more diverse cultures, that they audiate and respond to music, and they express it. They just let it out straight away. And often I've played in audiences in Australia. Maybe it's my talent level is another problem, but you won't get a response till the end of the set, because it's like, if I react to the music, I'm being silly type thing going on in their head. And we played at the Italian club, and they were up and dancing in the chairs before we even got through the first part of the song. So I just love that expressiveness of your heritage, that you don't need to hide this part of your humanity. You don't need to put a filter across this humanity that it just seems to be wonderful. You just get straight into it.
Reminder that no matter where I'm at, there's ways to express who I am,
And if you haven't dissolved by now in the sweat,
right? I know.
It's like,
right.
It's been such a pleasure that you spend some time with us, and then obviously you're a very busy person, and also you have to get up really early. So thank you so much for taking the time and sharing, and it feels very inviting, and I'm sure that we will all meet there pretty soon, sooner or later.
Absolutely.
That place, and some dancing sessions, unless there's a sign put up that dancing is not allowed.
Yeah,
might happen.
All dancers welcome.
Okay, so Lungani, is that time for you to close the show?
Okay, yeah. Thank you, people. Thank you so much. That was a beautiful talk. That was a lovely talk. I mean, I got to learn a lot about Jesse, and before David Pike, Mr. Pike, before you close the show, I know you the one who's closing the show today. I just wanna say thank you so much, Jesse, for making time. I know you're a busy person. There's a lot of things that you are doing. There's a lot of things going on. You've got people that you need to take care of. You've got staff. You have a company you need to take care of, and I really appreciate it that you made time to be part of the Global Sunday and share your experience with the people. I know there's a lot of people who have been commenting on our social media accounts and Diverse TV. They are so inspired, and from me, I just want to say thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing. I watched your videos, and I observed a lot of works that you did for kids, for communities. It's just so amazing. It's inspiring, and and I would like to say also thank you to my colleagues, my lovely colleagues. Claire, thank you so much. People, thank you. Mr. Pike, thank you so much. I'm not gonna take so much time. I'm just gonna let Mr. Pike end the show. Thank you so much, guys. Mr. Pike, please take over.
Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful Global Sundays. Thank you, Lungani, for producing it. Thank you for finding, I believe you're the one who found Jesse in your community. We all on the panel have an association with Prescott anyway, but now we've got a further, probably more important reason to come to Prescott and find the porch experience. It's Peepo shout though on the first round. Thanks, mate. And it's going to be a different world, and I think 2022 we might have to live with some things, this disease and horrible things going on, but it's about plugging on. It's just adapting, doing what you can do in the circumstance, and I'm sure through your entrepreneurship, your place will thrive. It sounds like it's got all the ingredients and the philosophy there too. It's just the vision's already in place. You just need the constant work at it, and people will come. They'll be drawn to you. And so, yeah, we need to wrap up the show because it's Global Monday, actually, in Australia. The sun is shining on our end and it's going down in the other parts of the world. We are at the forefront in Australia. We're the first. But it will be a pleasure to see Miss Classic, Mr. Ludden, hopefully back from Washington later in the next week. And it's great to see Claire, a compatriot, at this ungodly hour that Lungani gets us up for. A big thank you to all our visitors, all the people who've left comments for the show. Lovely people, because just talking as 4 people or 5 people across Zoom is only a small token of an activity, but when it's being shared across through Facebook and people are engaging with it, that's the magic. So that's up to Mr. Lungani and his wonderful vision for his show. And once again, lastly, yeah, Jesse, look forward to seeing you in the flesh, probably in the next 18 months, probably less. We keep our fingers crossed. God bless.
God bless.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Lungani. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Never give up. Wavusa uthando enhlisweni yami, kade ngisitshela ukuthi kade lwashabalala. Wavusa uthando enhlisweni yami, kade ngisitshela ukuthi kade lwashabalala. Ngase ngisitshelile ukuthi mina ngeke ngithande, kanti la makhala ngaka
it's hard for them to speak for themselves or to provide for themselves. And if I can contribute in any way, I saw this as a perfect place for that, because me being a native to Phoenix, and not only to Phoenix, but this country, you know, knowing English, knowing the culture, knowing my way around, knowing how to use simple appliances in a household, that is gold, that's treasure to someone who is completely foreign to America. I live, at GCU for 3 years, and I was their neighbors, and I just felt like some type of responsibility to like show up and be that help. And so as I started to come here a little more, I started to see the reality of the need here, and just felt like it was a calling to come here.
So Jesse, oh my goodness, he is a phenomenal person in general, just from his giving spirit and his openness and his willing to offer his help in any way that he can. When you start working with refugees, their whole sense of life can consume and change the way you live your life. There's a whole different type of culture when you're looking at working with refugees, and if you're not mentally prepared to adjust to that, it can seem strange to you. But the fact that he's willing to dedicate his time and is really pushing and has done a phenomenal job recruiting students from GCU in order to bring more services to help empower these young kids, especially in terms of improving their education levels and giving them the opportunity to succeed, which is the whole reason they came to the United States. They were given this opportunity to go to school, get an education, and empower themselves. And I think it's fantastic that Jesse has kind of really given them that opportunity and that kind of leg up to make that all happen.
Obviously, my faith is a really big part of my life. Coming here was because I felt a calling to come here. So the same calling and voice that I listened to come here is the same voice I listen to on how to be available to these people of the nations. And that looks different every day. It really does. Sometimes we don't need to conversate. We don't need to have dialogue, but it's just a helping hand. It's smiling, it's laughter, the universal language. And through that, it's just the doors open that way, And it's beautiful that we have opportunities like teaching English. It's beautiful that we have opportunities like congregating and getting the youth together and having playtime and gospel time. And I just see that as very important. I don't want to lose sight of my mission to come here. I kind of view it as a missionary because I'm like one of the only Americans here. Obviously, I have a heart for the people of the world. It would be a dream to visit all these places, visit every continent. But this is just a beautiful reminder that regardless where I'm at, peace, everyone needs to feel that peace. There's a lot of just division, there's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain, uneasiness, whatever you want to call it. This tattoo right here reminds me to pray for those countries. So we need volunteers to come with an open heart and say, how can I be available? How can God use me? How can we empower these kids? Because ultimately, the best way to really understand
House.